All right, we are recording. Well, welcome. We usually like to start each luncheon with just a handful of announcements, and then we're going to have Micah Eller give us a spotlight talking about Big Sky Hospitality Group and Oddfellow Inn and Farm. My name is Amber Johnson. I'm the president of the Women's Leadership Network of Helena. We meet every third Tuesday of the month for a program luncheon. Our luncheons slash programs have been virtual since March. And we also have been doing in-person outdoor socials since April. And something to look forward to, put on your calendars, is that we're doing an outdoor caroling event on the first Thursday of December, and that date is December 3rd. So Thursday, December 3rd, we're going to be gathering for some jolly caroling. People can drive in their own cars, and we're just going to drive to 4 different nursing homes in the Helena area, and we're all going to drive in our own separate cars, and we're going to remain a safe distance from one another as we sing at the doors and windows of some local nursing homes here in Helena. So if you have great vocal chops, or if you just love to sing, whatever you sound like there's no prerequisite on skill level for you to join us for some Christmas caroling. We'll have some hot chocolate, both adult versions available if you so choose. So that's going to be, again, Thursday, December 3rd. We'll soon be publishing a Facebook event with more information about when and where we will be meeting. So please put that on your calendars. Join us for caroling as we bless our senior citizens from outside their doors and windows this holiday season. Also, so for those of you who are not aware, we have, if you're a paid 2020 member, we have extended everybody's membership to 2021. And you'll be hearing more from us in the coming weeks about how we're restructuring our membership fees and how we are proceeding in the year ahead, given the fact that our paid members weren't able to really utilize much of the benefits and services of the WLN this year. So expect a phone call and an email from a WLN board member. With that being said, I'm going to introduce Micah Eller. She is the Director of Sales at Big Sky Hospitality Group, which encompasses the concession at the airport, Smoke Jumper, as well as Oddfellow Inn and Farm, and the recently opened French Farm to Table restaurant, Maison. Am I saying that correctly? Mason, Maison? I'm just going to guess.
Maison.
She's also the creative director of the Meadowlark Music Festival, Meadowlark Farmers Market, and is gearing up to open a small batch cold processed soap business utilizing local ingredients in 2021. So, Micah, you've got 5 minutes to tell us what it is that you want to tell us about. I mean, you've got your hand in a lot of cookie jars, so go for it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me today. I just wanted to kind of do a little spotlight on Maison, mostly because we've kind of changed our tracks for Oddfellow Inn and Farm. When we first opened it up in 2019, we had a concentration on events, which are clearly not something that's happening anymore. So we kind of pivoted and decided to open a French farm to table restaurant. We have a great chef who just joined us from Napa Valley, named James Richmond. He's worked in a couple 2 Michelin star restaurants, and a really great farm manager who has elevated our farm program beyond what we thought we would be able to do in 2020. So this last year, we were able to roll out a CSA program, a community supported agriculture, and we'll be rolling that again this next year. One of the exciting things that we have going on now is the grand opening of Maison. We've been doing the soft opening pretty much since March because it's kind of difficult to open a restaurant during this time. But we finally have our beer and wine license in place and all of our permitting. So we have Maison, which is a French farm to table restaurant, which is open now at Oddfellow Inn and Farm. You can find more information on the menu at Maison, MAISON.farm. It'll be open Wednesday through Saturday. And we are offering private parties, private dining. We have about 4 private dining rooms, including a wine cellar. Another thing that we're planning on doing besides having in-person dinner service is we are also offering takeout at this time, because we recognize that it's kind of a difficult thing for people to sit in a restaurant with other people around. We're also going to be rolling out a CSA type meal kit program similar to Blue Apron in the next 2 weeks. So that will be something where we can give you all the prepped ingredients and you can make a gourmet dinner at home from those ingredients. We are also able to serve wine through that too. So that's the best part about that. We have our new website. Like I said, I'm going to just write that in the text box here so everyone can take a look at that. We also offer some B&B rooms Wednesday through Saturday. One of the promotions that we are going to be running is cooking classes, which are going to be virtual. And so you'll be able to sign up ahead of time or even download them like we're doing right now, a recorded cooking class, and with some of those ingredients that we'll be sending out in the CSA. One other thing that I wanted to promote is that we are going to be giving a free glass of wine to any WLN member who shows their card when they come in for dinner, or if you're doing a takeout order, if you want to come in a little bit early, show your card and we'll give you a free glass of whatever wine you'd like. So that's about all I have to say about Maison. I'm really excited about the new restaurant opening up. We've had really good reception so far. And Oddfellow Inn and Farm is just a really exciting place to work at as well with the new animals that we're getting in. We just got 4 ox, as well as our mini donkey and 3 goats. It's a really great place to come out and visit if you haven't been out there yet. And then as far as the Smoke Jumper goes, we are in the process of opening up another restaurant there. We had to close down Smoke Jumper Station when the pandemic hit. But we are in the works of opening up a Indian takeout restaurant at Smoke Jumper. So that should be rolling out in about 3 months here.
Wow, what an ambitious team.
Yeah, we've got a really great group of people working. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to get this far without everyone's talents. So it's really exciting to be part of it.
And great, and thank you so much for being willing to be part of our 2021 perk card. Erin, I know that you're here. If you're listening, chat with Micah. Let's get her on the 2021 perk card. All right, well, thank you, Micah.
Thank you all.
And Kelly is asking, since I'm a new member, when do I get my WLN card? Kelly, you can email us your address and we'll send you one. We obviously will have new cards come 2021, which we will be mailing to people instead of picking up, because it'll be, I think, still a couple months before we can start to meet in person or even do like hybrid luncheons. So feel free to email us your address and we'll send you a 2020 perk card for the rest of the year. So, all right, well, I wanted to introduce Julie Dooling and Janet Ellis. They have graciously agreed to be our featured speakers at this month's luncheon. And thankfully we are having this recorded, so ladies, feel free to share it with your colleagues, friends, family afterwards, and we'll make sure to share it on our social media feed as well, so that more people who aren't able to make it today can still watch it later and learn from you. So if I'll just have you guys start by introducing yourself, telling us about your your history in the Montana State Legislature or just in public policy in general, be it a local or state level, and then have you guys just get started. I'm really excited to learn from you both.
Thank you, Amber. Julie wanted me to start off with an introduction, and what we've structured this is we're going to go back and forth, and it is a conversation, which is a good thing, I think, for a small group like this. But my name is Janet Ellis. I'm a senator for Senate District 41, which is, it includes downtown Helena, but it goes all the way out to Lincoln Road. It's a little bit of a pie slice, but my background is biology. I worked for the Audubon Society, Montana Audubon, for almost 30 years, and I have fairly recently retired. My history with the Montana legislature started in 2015 when I was elected to the House. I spent two sessions in the House, and then I'm now in the Senate. Those are 4-year terms, and I have served just 2019, so 2021, I didn't have to run for re-election. My expertise is not my background of biology, but I've been put on the budget committee, and I've been on that budget committee for 3 sessions now. So I spend a lot of time, and this will be an interesting session with COVID, to look at the budget and to work on the budget. In the Senate, you also, you get to do more than just a state budget. And the 2 committees I've been on, including in the interim, involve state administration, and that includes elections and pensions and things like that. It's pretty diverse. And then I was also on the energy committee this interim. And those are my areas of expertise.
Thank you, Janet. Julie?
And my name is Julie Dooling. I am the House Representative for House District 70, which starts all the way at the north point up at Gates of the Mountains and goes, there's 2 precincts in Lewis and Clark, or 3 precincts in Lewis and Clark County that follow Spokane Ranch area, Spokane Creek Ranch area, and it goes all the way through Broadwater County down to 3 Forks. So it's a fairly large district. And I was born and raised in the Flathead Valley. I moved to Helena in 2009 when I married my husband, Joe, and we have 1 son. He's 24. His name is Tyler. In my lifetime, I have had 2 careers. I've worked in the title and escrow industry, and I've also worked for financial services. I'm Series 63 and 7 licensed, and also insurance license. So basically have all the bells and the whistles of a stockbroker or a financial advisor. I don't have a book of business. I'm a very capable and qualified assistant. And so it works better for my schedule and for what I do. This is my 2nd session at the legislature. My 1st session, I had a 4-way primary against 3 other gentlemen. I beat them pretty good. I was pretty happy about that. In the general, that 1st session, I had an opponent that didn't campaign at all, so that was really weird, kind of goofy. This time, I had a primary against one of the gentlemen that I was up against last time, and no opponent in the general. So it's been nice because I've been able to work on putting bill drafts in since June because I was unopposed. I serve on 3 committees. Last session, state admin was my A committee, which meets 5 days a week. Transportation was my B committee, which meets 3 afternoons a week, and agriculture is my C committee, and that meets 2 afternoons a week. And so yeah, that's kind of my background.
Great, well, thank you for sharing, ladies. I'll let you hop in and take it away.
Okay, sounds good. So we're going, like Janet said, we're going to tag team each other and cover 3 topics. What do you think public policy is? What are some ways you can use your expertise to influence public policy? And thoughts about cracking the old boy system. I know when I think about bills and legislature, I always think of the the Schoolhouse Rock. I was going to try to get it to play, but it's not going.
Oh yeah, I'm just a bee. You want me to sing it for you? I'm just a bill.
I get a phone call at the same time.
Well, it's a long, long journey.
So that's what I think, and I think I played that about 4 times last night as Jen and I were going back and forth discussing what we were going to do. But our question for everybody here today is, can anyone tell me what types of things public policy includes?
And feel free for people, if you want to take yourself off mute and participate, or if you would like to chat, just type in the chat box. I'll read it out loud.
I'm not really clear about the question. Like, you mean, how does it, the public or how, people involved with public policy?
Just the types of things that public policy includes. So like bills and laws, you know, just the different agendas that they can include.
Oh,
I mean,
Everything.
my initial thought is everything.
yeah, I mean, me too. That's what I said. Everything.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
It's a better question to be like, what does it not include?
I did a little Google search, and you know, there's decision agendas, institutional agendas. I mean, it covers the whole gamut of everything from, you know, our local government all the way through. And Janet, do you have any input on that one as well?
Well, what I was going to just add, as you've indicated, it does include just about everything, and it does affect all of us in our work, where we recreate, what we do. There's some divisions in public policy, like what happens at the local government level versus the state versus the federal. But we were going to concentrate a little bit on what happens more at the state level and our personal experience. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about, because we weren't sure how to approach this topic with people, is to begin with, one of the things that you in particular are set up to do as individuals with any background is try to influence policy and public policy. And just using your expertise that you have, your background in business or whatever you do, whatever you've studied or anything, you can bring that to bear. And we're going to give you a couple examples that we have used our personal experience to help influence public policy. I just wanted to mention that legislators don't have staff at all. And so we actually, your expertise is really, really critical. And if you have something that you are interested in or want to change or anything like that, it's really, really helpful to bring your expertise to the table if you're interested.
And by legislative staff, you mean state legislative staff?
Correct. But that's our role here today. So
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about is legislators, even though you heard all our committees, we don't have a staff person to help us with any research or communications or anything like that. You're pretty much left up to figuring stuff out on your own, and you can get little questions answered by legislative staff, but we don't personally have staff that help us read a bill and know the ins and outs and all those sorts of things. So if there is an area of expertise or an area that you can bring to the table, it's very, very helpful. So Julie, do you want to give an example?
Well,
Sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. I was thinking about public policy, and ideally it would be for the greater good of the community, right? Or the greater good of, I don't know, the most people. Anyway, sorry. It's kind of a late answer to your question, but that kind of came to my mind. So I thought,
Yeah.
sure.
And that's what we hope that most laws that are passed are for the greater good. But there are a lot of laws that get brought, or a lot of bills that get brought to committee that have agendas, and they can be fairly self-serving to different groups or factions, and that's part of the process. The committee process is weeding those out. And one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves when we're in committee: is this really necessary? Are we duplicating? Are we adding more unnecessary law? Is this actually necessary? Is it for the greater good of the whole state, or the greater good of the larger group that it could possibly affect? And we have to weed those things out. I am in state admin, and like Janet said, because she's on the interim committee, it covers a lot of different things. And it wasn't my first choice when we get to just pick and choose what committees we might want to be on when we have to submit that to leadership at the beginning of the session. But it ended up being my favorite committee because we heard so many different items. Like Jenna said, the pensions, laws and bills pertaining to our military vets, election laws, notary things. It's a huge gamut of stuff. And it was very, very interesting. And they talk about housekeeping bills, and people say, oh, I just have this simple housekeeping bill. Well, simple housekeeping bills, typically are supposed to be correcting verbiage or things that are antiquated, or there's too many words and the meaning's not correct. And so somebody decided, or an agency decided, it needs to be changed. Excuse me. And so teachers' retirement system came to the committee one day. They had this simple housekeeping bill, and I'm reading through it. And because of my financial services background, I catch this paragraph in there that's about how state employees or teachers are allowed to withdraw their money after retirement, or if they're no longer employed and they wanted to go somewhere else. It had a 30-day hold on a person's money. Well, when you are investing funds, you don't have 30 days. Sometimes market timing is of the essence. The market can go way up, and if you didn't buy in low, you're missing out on that gain, and so there can be losses. Well, if there's a loss, who's responsible for that? So I brought that up in committee, and the next day there was an amendment to that bill taking that out, because it's not good for the investor. And so that was one of the things that I was able to use with my background, my personal finance, work experience, to help change something to make a better bill that came out of committee.
So,
Janet or Julie, for the people who are not familiar with the process, because I know, Julie, that you just played that I'm Just a Bill video, and we didn't sit and watch that, but could you just flesh out for people who don't fully know the process of introducing a bill, going to committee, the difference between the Senate and the House? Is there a way that you can flesh that out for people who might not otherwise be familiar with that information?
Go ahead, Janet.
okay, legislators put in bill draft requests, and that doesn't mean that they're all your ideas. Sometimes we're approached by groups like American Cancer Society or some other group that wants a bill. Diabetes Association, I know Montana Budget and Policy Center. There are a bunch of groups that might have a bill that they want to introduce. So you put in a bill, then you work to get language to do whatever you want to do to change it. And then you introduce the bill. It starts either in the House or the Senate. Money bills have to start in the House, but otherwise any bill can start in the House or Senate. They go to a committee. They're assigned a committee by the lead person. It's the president of the Senate or the Speaker of the House, and it goes to a committee. It gets heard. There's a hearing where people can come in and tell you all the good things or bad things they disagree with. Eventually that committee votes, assuming the bill proceeds. the next step is it goes to the floor of the House or the floor of the Senate. And then if it passes that, it switches over to the opposite chamber and goes through the same process with a hearing in the House, a vote in the, or a hearing in the House committee, a vote in the committee. It's brought to the floor where you have a discussion, there's a vote, and then it goes to the governor's office, and the governor gets to decide whether they're going to sign it or veto it, or they can let it go into effect actually without signing it too. There's a way to do that. So that's sort of the overview of how a bill becomes a law. Is that?
No, that's perfect. I think that that's a lot of checks and balances that I feel like a lot of people aren't overly familiar with what happens in creating policy. So thank you for that info.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about one way I've influenced policy, and I've been on the budget committee, but one of the things I did last session was I got, and this may sound like a lot of money, but it isn't a terrible lot amount of money, but it's $300,000 for Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks to use to improve the habitat portion of fishing access sites. And I just want to tell you, policy includes getting money to a program. And this money was not taken away from any other program. It was Fish, Wildlife and Parks money. It was indicated that they had a budget surplus. And that's where the money came out of. But the program was to do a pilot with like 5 different fishing access sites to try to improve those so they weren't as hammered, bombed out as sometimes we see. They're little postage stamps, but they have some good habitat. And Fish, Wildlife and Parks, I talked to the director about it, and she was really supportive. So it was one way that I could use my background, in particular with Audubon, to actually get some money towards a program that could change a little bit of how fishing access sites are treated in the state of Montana. So one of the things that we wanted to do in addition on this section, and Amber, you're going to have to keep track of time because I'm not clear how much time we have and how much.
I'll keep track of time.
Okay, so the next thing we were interested in is if anybody had any questions over what we've talked about, just influencing policy, or if you have a personal story about using your expertise or background to influence policy at all. We're interested to hear from you if you had anything.
I have a little bit of experience. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and for our Montana Association of Naturopaths, I'm on the legislative committee. And so I participated in an event we had during the last legislature where a group of us went and we met and talked with representatives and senators about our profession. And I continue to be on the legislative committee, and I've been learning a lot about policy and how it all works, and it's been really fun. I grew up in a family where I grew up in New Mexico, and my parents helped get Pete Domenici elected senator, and he was senator for a long time, and we used to do a lot of volunteering they did, and they would drag us along with them. And so it's been interesting for me to be involved now again as an adult after seeing my parents involved when I was a child. So it was really instilled in me from a young age to get involved. So that's my personal experience.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good.
And I do think that there is a distinction between creating public policy, which we're talking about today, and politics. And I know that they're related, but I'd be curious to, because I have worked in the U.S. Senate when I was fresh out of college. I mean, I was a lowly staffer, and I was not a legislative aide, so I can't say that, but I mean, I was around a lot of it. And it was, you know, the most interesting and fascinating thing to me having worked, in the federal level, is in general how well people get along with one another. Once you can get past the politics and people can actually sit down and create policy together. And I think people who watch 24 hours a day, 7 days a week news cycles would be shocked and awed to realize that maybe people get along better than they would imagine, on a personal level at least. And so I do think that there is, I think, a distinction between creating public policy and the strategy and game of politics. And I don't know if you guys can speak on that at all.
I agree with you. One of the reasons that we wanted to talk about influencing public policy was because we assumed that not everybody was going to run for the legislature or anything. And one of the things that this group, in particular individuals like we just heard from Liz about, is influencing policy in a way that is important for her, where she goes to work every day and the decisions that are made. I do agree. I mean, people like Julie, Representative Duling and I do talk, and it is, in Montana, it's a little bit different because we don't have staff. We're a citizens legislature, which means that we meet 90 days every other year. It's not like we are professional legislators and we don't have a staff like they do in Congress. It's very, very different. And so I think we end up sticking a little bit more to our own chamber because there are so many things to get done in 4 months' time every other year that you don't get to build the relationships perhaps with the other chamber like you might otherwise. But I do agree that the good thing about the process, I think, is that it's a little bit formal, and as a result, you take a little of the emotion out, and as a result, you can have more professional discussions and not as many things. Well, I'm sure there are committees that have really emotional topics discussed, but you can also treat each other with respect and have conversations that you might not otherwise between people with different backgrounds and different policy and different parties, political parties. It's a big mixer up there, and there's a lot of mixing going on, that's for sure. Julie, did you want to add anything?
I agree 100%. I think most of the conflict that we hear about is actually in the different parties themselves. I know, like, for example, our Republican caucus, there's a few people in there that I swear that's the only reason they come up there is to come up and stir the pot and try to get people to disagree, when I think whether you're Republican or Democrat, we're going to agree on quite a few things. And I think it's those folks that realize that and they want to work towards that. Those are the folks that get the stuff done. Jen and I get along great. Kim Abbott and I get along great. Jasmine Krockoff, she was a freshman last session with me, and we ended up going to CSG West, which is for legislators, and she and I had a great time down there. I had her in a couple committees last session, and I was really, really sad to see that she's not back this session, because I think she had some great ideas and good policy that she wanted to work on. And hopefully those ideas don't go away because she's not a legislator. But I guess that was one of the shocking things to me, is being on the floor of the House and seeing how many people that there was mingling across that center aisle. People, they're on the Democrat side, were coming over the Republicans are going over to the Democrats, and people were actually talking. And I don't think a lot of the public understands that we are friends. I mean, we have to get along because we're in committees together, we're on the floor together, we socialize a lot, you know, outside of the Capitol together at different functions. And if you don't get along with everybody, it's kind of a miserable 90 days. So I would rather go up there, be friends, learn about who does what, and that way if I need help, whether on a particular piece of legislation, I know who that expert is, whether they, you know, have a R or a D on their lapel. It doesn't matter. They, you know, I want the best people helping me to make the best policy. That's my 2 cents worth.
That's good. So any other questions that you guys want answered? We're going to sort of switch gears now and talk about breaking into the good old boy system. Because this is a women's leadership network, we thought maybe you had experience and could really help us deal with this very real issue that we see when we go to the Capitol. And I can start it off, but it looks like Amber, you just came off.
Oh, I did, but no, please go for it, Janet.
Okay, so one of the things that Julie and I were talking about, because this is a women's leadership network, is we think that the legislature has a large good old boy system, and that's just when a lot of the power is with men. In my caucus, there are more women, and I'm a Democrat, than men, but leadership and leadership on committees and who gets to make a lot of the decisions tends to be more male dominated. And so I'm not sure I know how to crack through the good old boy system. I was hoping you guys would have some sage advice for us. I know that we try different things, we poke at it. And I was, as an example, I was vice chair of 2 interim committees, and that was useful for me to figure out how to work the system. It's maybe not as geared towards a good old boy system. But this legislature, I'm also trying for a vice chair, a minority vice chair position this session. But I just was interested in talking about it. It's something we deal with. And it's a nut that we need to crack. I don't know if Julie wants to add anything before.
Well, last session there were in the House there were 58 Republicans, and I think there were 10 or 11 of those Republicans were women. The Democrat side was much more fortunate. There were 44, 42 Democrats, and half of those were women. So it's good to have that much representation from the female side of things. This session, I forgot to count, but there's a lot more females this time. But still, the percentage it's still way too low. I think that we need to show up more in numbers and try to do what we can to break through and be these people that our state can look up to for policy changes.
And one of the things I was talking to Julie about is I just think women approach things in a different way. We have different priorities. It might be social services maybe, and healthcare, and things that are different a little bit. But I do think we also network differently, and we are, I think, a little more respectful in general, maybe not as quick to get, yeah, we just do things differently. And I think the perspective is healthy and good and important. And I really thank you for being involved in your group so you can help women get better at making their voices heard. Does anybody have anything that they want to add or advice they want to give us? Or
I think there's this interesting book called Women Don't Ask. And I think I think there's multiple studies that show that when women aren't completely convinced that they're 100% qualified for the job, they typically won't apply. And I think that I feel like there's a way within our own community of women, our community of nonpartisan women, that I'm hoping that we can encourage one another, that we don't have to have all the answers or be 100% qualified to, you know, apply or ask for a seat at the table.
Right.
And so I definitely think that's something socialized. It's socialized, I think, into, you know, women regardless of background, is that kind of that hesitation to ask for a seat at the table when you're not 100% convinced that you have all the answers or have all the skills. And I don't think the same can be said for men. And so I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in about how we can encourage one another to go out on a limb, to take risks, and to not always have to have all of the answers and all of the skills in order to actually make progress towards something. I don't know, those are my two thoughts. Any reactions from the peanut gallery?
Well,
No,
I think,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say that my background is in culinary, which is a primarily male-dominated industry. And I think a lot of women will overcompensate by trying to adopt masculine sort of management styles. And I think that there is a lot of merit in developing some of those aspects that you just said were benefits of being a woman in this sort of organization, you know, that willing to reach across the aisle and willing to be a little bit softer about how we approach things instead of yelling until we get our way. Or, you know, throwing pots and pans and knives around. That's kind of my experience.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Well, it's something we struggle with, and we're not always successful, but we do continue to work at it, and I think it's important work for you all as well as us, because it does bring a unique perspective up to the legislature and influencing public policy and how our budget gets spent and all those things. It's we think about it a little bit differently. So with that, Julie, do you want to do our last point that we're going to cover, and we'll just see how this goes?
So we think that one of the most important things you can do is use your expertise to help to create or help shape public policy. We're going to give examples, and I was thinking about this morning. I don't think I've used my expertise to help change some policy that was being proposed, but I actually haven't input a bill draft or anything like that, or creating any sort of legislation that's based on what I currently do right now. So I don't have any good examples of it, but I know Janet does.
Yeah, I was going to give one example of something I did for the Audubon Society. And if you know the Audubon Society at all, it works a lot on bird conservation. And one of the issues that we faced, and this is a number of years ago, was, and you may laugh because my background's biology, I'm bringing my expertise, and please forgive me for this, but was mute swans down in Livingston. There was a rancher who had mute swans. They got to be about 125 of them. They were starting to go all over the state. And the challenge is they outcompete our native trumpeter swan, which is something that Montana is really proud of. We were the last state in the union to have trumpeter swans. It's a big deal. So we knew there was an issue there, but it's hard to pass legislation or policy to affect one specific species. And so we ended up coming up with an exotic species bill that built on impacts to wildlife, but then it set up a state committee and it can look at things like wildlife species that may bring in diseases that affect the health of humans or livestock or anything like that. It brought in the Department of Agriculture because some species may bring challenges into our state because they impact agriculture, and on and on. So we have it's a very diverse committee. It's been active 20 some years, and it's not a lot of species on that list, but it is important because the Department of Livestock actually, I believe, is the one that regulates the importation of animals into the state. That if we understand ahead of time what might be coming into the state, because we were able to pass this bill and get and the only reason we did that was to get a diverse coalition to help pass that bill. We've been able to prevent some train wrecks in our state that might otherwise happen. And like I said, there's not a lot of species on the list, but we have developed a whole process that uses expertise of scientists and others to figure out what works and what doesn't work, or what might pose a threat and what wouldn't pose a threat. Because otherwise, anybody can do anything in our state. And as you know, that is not always a good thing, or hopefully you know that.
So it's interesting how you guys use this word expertise a lot, and I want to flesh that out a little bit and compare it to lived experience. I think that the word expertise can really scare some people because they're like, well, I'm not an expert in anything. So is there, so say that instead of expertise, we use the word lived experience. Obviously, lived experience is going to influence how people care about certain things and certain issues. So can you give us an example of somebody, maybe not so much with expertise, but with lived experience that influenced you in creating some public policy?
One of the things that I'll just talk about an example, and this isn't a great example because I haven't put as much thought into this maybe as I should have, but when one of the things that I know businesses get frustrated by is filling out a lot of duplicate paperwork. This is just something that happens because you have maybe unemployment stuff, you have workers' comp, you have all kinds of things that you may have to fill out different forms. Well, one of the things that they did in the wetland world is they came up with a common application that will work for the federal government, the Army Corps of Engineers for a wetland permit, the conservation districts, the Department of Natural Resources. So even though not everybody's applying for every program, they can fill out one form instead of a form for, each application that they might need. And but it translates, what I'm trying to say is this translates potentially into businesses and making businesses not have to fill out so much paperwork just to get government services. I don't know if that's a great example of using, because it's not really expertise, it is life experience, but it was bringing a program that I worked with in a habitat wetland wildlife world, and that could benefit the business community. So I think your life experience, whatever it is, can be applied if you think hard enough and are creative.
Well, and one of the things that I felt in committee is when we had just any given bill, there's always almost always a lobbyist coming in to testify for the bill, a lobbyist coming in to testify against the bill. And the testimony that held the most weight with me were when private citizens come in. Your local doctor, your soccer mom, whatever, because they feel strongly about, one way or another about this bill. And these people were taking time out of their day and their life to come in and get maybe 5 minutes of our time to say, this is good, this is bad. And for me, those life experiences kind of hold more water because they're living it. They're not getting paid to support it one way or the other. And don't get me wrong, we love our lobbyists because they do provide a really good service, and you know which ones you can trust in a lot of different areas. But coming to committee and you have people that they cry because they feel so impassioned about their opinion on one way or the other. And so for me, just your regular people off the street, whether it's a businessman or a soccer mom or a grandma, it doesn't matter. I really appreciate it when citizens came in and took their time to come in and testify in committee one way or the other.
I would agree.
Yeah, thank you, ladies. I would agree. I would encourage everybody listening on today or watching this later to do exactly what Julie and Janet are encouraging, is to use your lived experience and your passion, your expertise, and have a chat with your local legislator about something you really care about. This is a representative democracy for a reason. So I would encourage everybody to realize that public policy is not politics. It doesn't have to be, and that you can use your passion, your expertise, and your lived experience to really create a community in a state that you want to live in for a really long time. So thank you, Senator Ellis and Representative Dooling, for joining us today. We are going to wrap up this 12:57. Is there any final comments or questions from the peanut gallery before we wrap up? Okay, I hear silence. Therefore, I'm going to say we will call this an adjourn. Again, I hope that you will join us for Christmas caroling, outdoor Christmas caroling. On the December 3rd, we're going to try to bless the seniors in our communities with some merry and beautiful caroling during this very strange holiday season. Again, and I hope that you guys are excited to just finish this winter of plague, and hopefully we'll start normalizing at the WLN come March or April of next year, and really get to enjoy all of the benefits of networking and programming that we are really excited to get back to. But until then, I hope everybody stays safe, and that despite the times that we're living in, that you have a peaceful holiday season. So thank you for being here, and we will see you again in a future event, be it virtual or in person.
Well, thanks, Amber. Thanks for inviting us.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thanks for everybody for joining us today.